Hi, I'm Kareem from GameCrate. Today we're going to be talking about Grey Goo, a new real-time strategy game from Petroglyph Games. Specifically, we're going to cover 5 tips on how to make you a better Grey Goo player. The first tip is hotkeys and how to manage your units and production buildings at the same time. This is your headquarters. Now with the beta race, you're going to attach buildings to this headquarters to enable production. So we're going to select it, and we're going to choose a structure. The first structure is always going to be the refinery because you're going to need minerals to make units. So getting into the hotkeys. Hotkeys allow you to easily access buildings even if you're not looking at the buildings themselves. Basically, it takes resources or, like your own mental effort away, like from the mouse into the keyboard, allowing you for faster allowing you to access them much faster. So I'm going to select the headquarters. I'm going to hit Control 5. Now you'll be able to see on the bottom of the screen that the 5 just lit up. This means that this headquarters is now bound to the 5 hotkey. So let's say I go and I select this scouting commando. I can select it and I can move it on the map, and if I hit 5, I'm going to select the headquarters, and if I hit again, I'm back at the headquarters. And so if I want to add another building, let's say the factory, which is typically going to be your second building as the beta race, you can queue that up. And so we're going to try to look for the where the enemy is, but as we're moving around the map and we want to jump back to our base without actually having to go on the mini map over on the bottom right side of the screen, we can just tap 5 twice and we're back there. So let's go ahead and select the factory. I like to bind my factory to the 2 key, but this preference is completely arbitrary, and you can choose whatever key you want or whatever you're most comfortable with on the keyboard. So I'm going to hit Control 2 to bind the factory to the 2 key. So when I hit 2 on my keyboard, it'll select the factory. And then I can start building units by hitting either the Q or W. And then I can sort of rally them. So let's go back to our unit. It's over here. I want to select the factory. I'm going to double tap 2, and it's going to be building unit. Now let's say I don't want to go all the way back and I'll still keep building units without actually looking at my home base. I'm going to hit 2 and then the corresponding key to actually choose the unit to build. So I'm going to hit 2 and I'm going to hit Q, and you can see it's loaded up in the factory, and I'm doing all of this without actually looking at my home base. This allows me to basically add supply or building forces, armored forces, without going over the tedious process and wasting, in a sense, my mouse clicks on a process that can be easily achieved with hotkeys. So units themselves can also be bound to hotkeys. So let's say this commando unit. What if I want to make sure that I can always locate it on the map without actually having to refer to my minimap? I can bind it to the 1 key. So I'm going to hit Control 1 on this unit. And now it's on the 1 key, so if I go back to my base using the 5 key and I see, oh, I have new units, whatever, I'm going to, let's see, what's the next thing I'm going to do here? I'm going to add a tech building, I suppose. I'll add a tank attachment, because those are always nice. So I'm adding that to my headquarters. And then I was like, oh, wait, what's my scout doing? I double tap the 1 key and it's all the way here. And this way, you can really cycle through your production buildings. And jump back if you need to, add more units, go back to your main base if something's going on, that sort of thing. Now as the fight evolves and becomes more complex and you have more than 1 unit, you can append or add units to your control group. So let's say I have this commando here, he's bound to the 1 key, and I want to add these 2 new units to the same control group. I'm going to hit Shift 1, and then they're all added to the same hotkey. So while I can individually select this, and this does not affect the movement of the other units, if I hit 1 and click here, they will all start moving, which is really useful for reinforcing your army position without actually having to individually select the units. The second tip is managing your resources and expanding outward. This tip sort of has to do with the macro economics of playing a Grey Goo game. What you always want to be doing in Grey Goo is expanding outward. This means securing new bases where you can gather more resources. In Grey Goo, it's known as the catalyst. Um, and this is simply because the more resources you collect, the more units you can make, the better your tech will be, and the easier it will be for you to sort of rebuild the units you're going to lose when you're engaged in the bigger battles. So, just as with the beta race, you're always going to start with, well, the first thing you're always going to do is move to a resource patch. And then, with your scout, you always want to go check the four corners of the map to identify where your enemy is going to be. So gathering resources is a fairly relaxing process, I think, with the Goo Race in particular, simply because you don't have to build anything. There are no, the Mother Goo is the only quote-unquote production building of the race, whereas with the humans and the beta, if I wanted to build a refinery, then I would actually have to build that structure separately, and I would have to individually build the extractor onto the resource patch. So what I like to do with the Grey Goo is to usually not make any fighting units in the beginning and just create another Mother Goo, therefore doubling my refinery and thereby my available income. And I like to do this with the beta and human races too. However, I will build a factory or an assimilator way before I build the second one. So I'll usually, the build order usually goes something like build a refinery, build a factory, build like between 2 to 4 units, and then build your second refinery. And the reason for this is because the Mother Goo itself is an attacking unit, and it's a quite powerful attacking unit at that. So there isn't this sort of urgency to build offensive units that early on in the game, whereas that may be the case for the beta and the human races. So let's just wait it out here, and okay, perfect. We have our second Mother Goo, and now so you have this goo, and then you're like, well, where's the research patch? The first thing you should always do in a game, other than moving your Mother Goo to a resource patch or building a refinery, is to click this button here on the bottom right. This toggles all the resource patches within the particular map visible, allowing you to sort of both identify the resource patches as well as plot your sort of general expansion, how you're going to expand during the course of the game. So right now we saw that our little drover was able to identify that the enemy has taken the bottom right position. So what we're going to do is plot out our expansion route. Like, we're going to want to expand perhaps towards the left side of the map, so as to not have our production buildings, aka Mother Goos, too close to offending units. And this this is the same thing you would do as both the human and beta race. You're going to want to make sure that where you place your refineries or your Mother Goos is going to be out of the way of any attacking path that your enemy may create. The third tip is learning unit weaknesses and which tech paths to take. As you can see, my enemy has just made flying units, so in order to best counter this, you want to have anti-air units within your composition. There is a lot of overlap between the ground units in Grey Goo, but you can generally tell which units are better than others. For example, if you're facing a ton of drovers, you might want to build a few striders or to be able to take care of those. And again, if you have a lot of air units, you want to make sure that they can shoot ground units as well, so they can take care of anti-air units. Those will have a harder time, falling to enemy pressure. And obviously for whatever race you end up playing, the first thing you want to do is like, well, what units are going to be best suited for matching my enemy's composition. If you see your enemy make a lot of artillery units, you may want to consider air units so that you can bomb them. Now you can obviously only do that as either the beta or the human race. The Grey Goo actually does not have any flying units, so then as Grey Goo, to counter artillery, you might want to build your own artillery in order to counter it. And then for buildings, the Goo itself for Grey Goo is going to be very good. And I would say for the other races, you're probably best off using artillery to destroy units, as well as heavy armored units that have a relatively high damage output, and so on and so forth. So basically, learning unit counters, learning which units to choose when facing a particular army composition. The campaign actually does a fairly good job at introducing you to pretty much every unit of the game. So, obviously before becoming competitive, I would recommend playing the campaign. The fourth tip is playing against AI. Obviously, once you beat the campaign, you can say that you have enough familiarity with the units in Grey Goo, and you kind of know how to use the UI and, locate your units, build certain structures. I mean, the maps are usually, in the campaign mode, the missions are usually over an hour long, so you'll have, I would say, about 20 hours of experience with Grey Goo. After that, it's like, well, the next step is you want to play a little competitively. I would recommend playing at least 10 games against the AI, and I would further recommend first playing against the weaker AI, then against the normal AI, and then once you're feeling really up to it, playing against the harder AI. And that's sort of what the 3 levels are. And then I would say once you're comfortable beating hard AI, who also plays random, I think you're going to be ready to play on the online mode. But if you're impatient, as I was, you can also just simply jump in to the multiplayer menu, and you should be able to see here on Steam Matches, you can play against another player. But let's say you're a little nervous about losing your ranking, and you just want to play for fun, and you don't really care about being that competitive, or you just want to get a quick first taste of what competitive play online looks like. You can play it on ranked, which I think was really nice. A really nice addition for Grey Goo's multiplayer mode. It took StarCraft several years to introduce the unranked mode, so props to Grey Goo developers for adding that right off the bat. And then the other thing you might want to consider if you want to sort of party it up with other people is you might want to do the 2v2. Though I will make the guess that a lot of the attention and sort of glory in Grey Goo is going to come from the 1v1 mode. But playing it unranked, playing with other people, and playing against the AI is a great way to get familiar with the flow of the game and get more experience when playing against other people. The fifth tip is a series of little tips for each race, including the humans, beta, and the Goo. The really cool thing and unique thing about the human race is that everything is connected through a power grid, not unlike that in Protoss for StarCraft, that race. However, this you actually have to, everything has to connect to the core, as it were. So that's always going to be your primary consideration, is making sure everything is connected, nice and tidy. I think as a race, the humans have, by and large, the best static defense. And I think their ultimate unit, which you can see here, the Alpha, it's sick. I think once you get to that point, your army is pretty much unstoppable, in my opinion. So I think they have the best endgame unit. I think they have the best static defense. So let's say your enemy wants to rush you, all you have to do is add some static defense, such as the anti-sentinel gun. And that just warps in, it's very easy to do. And that, one of these has 500 hit points, which is quite a bit. And the damage output is 30 per shot, which will take care of pretty much any early game aggression. So this is going to be a brief overview of the beta race, which resembles quite a bit the Terran race in StarCraft. They're very modular in that you're going to be building these things called hubs that you would then attach components to. Kind of like also in the human race, you'd add a tank attachment to a factory in order to build higher tech units. Think of it like a tech lab in StarCraft. They're basically upgraded versions of the production buildings. What I really like about the beta race is that they're not bound to any particular location, and they can really easily build these hubs where they can build refineries and factories on. The only thing you need is vision of that place. So let's say I want to go and rush this extractor point for whatever reason with my commando. I can do that right off the bat. Let's just build something here to ward off this droner. But yeah, there's it's really modular in that way. The buildings don't fly like in StarCraft, but in the same sense that you're able to really easily expand around the map and take little hidden ninja bases just by dropping silos around the map. I also think the beta race has the best air force in the game, the best air units, simply because you don't need to build additional air pads like the human race. You can just add hangars. Think it very loosely matches the Zerg race in StarCraft, but not really. It's very unique. I like the fact that you're not bound statically to any location. I love the fact that you can move around the map. I really like the level of strategy it unlocks just by having this very mobile, mobile force that can become, a refinery when it wants to. It can make offensive units on the fly. It itself is an offensive unit. And just the production mechanics are very interesting. The fact that, these eggs, quote unquote, that are hatched from the mother goo, they themselves can be used to attack and then morphed into units, which sort of doubles their longevity throughout the course of the game. And it's very refreshing. It's new, and it kind of makes me want there to be more of a difference between the human and beta races down the line, if not now, but hopefully later. Here's a little example. Let's say, we have this small protean, which can be used to attack. And, the other cool thing about Goo in general is that it can go over hills and mountains. It has no restrictions as to its movement, unlike the ground units in the game, which I think also offsets the fact that Goo itself does not have air units. So that's one thing that they, I think, do really well. And yeah, so let's say I want to rush this base. I'm just gonna quickly move my protean there, and let's just make another protean for the fun of it and move that along as well. Just see if this rush is going to work. But yeah, I just love the way it looks. I love the way it functions. I love the way when you get to these really late game scenarios and you have 7 or 8 mother goos on the map, and then you just choose 7 of them because you always want to keep one alive. That's the win condition. Would otherwise you would lose if you lost your last mother goo. Keep one at home, and then you just attack with 7 mother goos and a huge army. That's really, really terrible for a hard force to combat, especially considering how quickly they beat how quickly they destroy structures. Well, that's it, guys. If you like the tips, feel free to check out the review below. And if you have any questions, please be sure to leave a comment.